Martin, hey, I'm so glad to be here, obviously. We came up here to film the Leadership Locker, a podcast, and I came up here with the intent to talk to you about your keynote that blew me away at Craig Ballantyne's Perfect Life Retreat on culture. We sat up in your kitchen and we talked for a little while. Now we're going to just change everything. We're going to change everything.
Scrap that.
And we're going to get into a couple things. And we're going to get into what I believe is a really interesting take on entrepreneurship. So we'll do that. Then we're going to talk about your book, which I can't wait to talk about. But first and foremost, for my audience, who are you? And this could probably take 30 minutes with everything you've done, but tell us a little bit about yourself so we know what's going on.
All right. Hey, well, again, my name is Martin Rooney. I'll give the fast version. Originally from New Jersey, that's where I grew up. Got interested in sports, became a track and field athlete in college, and then by some crazy stroke of luck, while I was at the medical university trying to become a physical therapist, which we'll talk about, I think, I made the US Bobsled team. I made the US Bobsled team. I was repping the US, which was a humbling experience for me. But my driver, who went on to win the silver medal at the Olympics, he was also a fighter. So he was a professional fighter getting money so we could afford to stay alive and have a sled. And when my dream was over, I came home and I was really interested in the fighting stuff too. So a friend of mine says, hey man, Renzo Gracie, one of those Gracie guys, has just moved from Brazil. He's got one of the first studios in Manhattan. You got to check it out. And I started going and I trained and I befriended those guys, and they saw I had things they needed for the future of the sport. They had things I needed because I wanted an escape from the career that I had. And I started traveling around the world with those guys, and really interesting. But I also at the same time was helping build a sports performance national franchise called the Parisi Speed School, which allowed me the opportunity to train NFL people and from youth athletes too. And I was in my space exactly where I wanted to be, but I learned a lot about business too. And then fast forward through the fighting and the combination of that, I spun off something called Training for Warriors. And because I saw there was a bigger issue than just sports performance, there were so many people that needed help worldwide in terms of losing fat, building muscle, feeling better about themselves. And I saw that I had a bigger mission to serve. And now currently we have hundreds of facilities in almost 20 countries around the world. We're impacting thousands of people a day. But all of that, what I realized now, the tip of the spear of all of it is none of it happens if you can't coach. So it doesn't matter what I know about fitness if I can't get somebody to do it. Doesn't matter what I know about sports performance or winning if I can't get somebody to do the stuff that I know. And that's where I really honed in on, well, how I do those things is because I coach. But then I started to realize, well, where's the education for a coach? Or where's the background? You'll meet people in the military. They never have one day on coaching, right? Hey, you meet people in sport. They never had one day in coaching. They just had coaches. You see people come out of university, nothing on coaching. And that's why the last number of years I've spent all my energy dissecting what makes a great coach, what type of coach do we need. And that led to the newest book that is the distillation of all the stuff that I've learned to help anybody coach somebody for better performance, and I couldn't be more excited. So so I just gave that was 25 years we just talked about too. Yeah.
Awesome. So let's talk about the very first subject, which is we were talking upstairs, and I was telling you again who my audience is, which is transitioning service members and veteran entrepreneurs. And you're like, whoa. You're like, be careful with the word entrepreneurs. And I was like, where's he going with this? And after we had a good lengthy discussion about it, I think it's extremely important to talk about this. So tell me your take on entrepreneurs versus, I think as you put it, executors or tacticians. Yeah. Let me know your take.
Well, hey, first off, and for everybody listening too, I think it's important that they understand also other parts of my background I didn't talk about, where I've had the opportunity to work with the Army Rangers, US Army Airborne, Navy SEALs. My dad was Army, and my uncle was a commandant of the Air Force Academy, which we didn't even talk about. Yeah, and a 3-star brigadier general. I want everybody to be aware that, hey, I have a deep understanding and respect for the military. And that's why it's been a big mission of mine, where nothing was more humbling than to be able to use my system to, in some capacity, help our military, which I always come back from those excursions and explain, hey, that's why we sleep really well at night. So I think a lot of people say it or they give it lip service, but I've spent a lot of time in the trenches helping with that too, so I believe it.
I got it.
And that being said, I feel like I've got my finger on the pulse of a lot of these guys when they are coming back and the skill sets of what they've been taught when they were away. And that leads to why when you said, hey, we're going to talk about entrepreneurs and these guys are going to come back and be entrepreneurs. And the other background I have is, hey, I've helped hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people own their own businesses. And now I speak globally at, you ready for this, entrepreneurial conventions, just like the one that you saw me at. And the interesting thing that I've really come to the conclusion is most of those people are not entrepreneurs. And that's not a bad thing, so because we talked about it, you saw me, I did it. I said, how many people here are entrepreneurs? And what happened? Every hand, and every hand went up with pride. I'm an entrepreneur because I started an LLC and I made a logo. And none of that makes you an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is a mindset. And I'm trying to still continue to understand, and is it a genetic thing that people are born with, or can you become an entrepreneur? And I lean a lot more towards, could you learn it? Yeah. But I think there's something inside of people that makes them different. Like we talked about, a Richard Branson, an Elon Musk. These people, Tony Zay from Zappos, these guys, when you read their books and you study them, they are lifetime entrepreneurs figuring out these are the guys that are like buying sandwiches and then selling them at a double when they're in first grade. There's just a difference. They love business, the rush of business. They will take any risk. And it doesn't matter what the business is because they're building it to sell it to have the next business. That's an entrepreneur.
Are you an entrepreneur?
And we talked about this. I would say no. Some people say, wow, look at all the things that you've done. And I would say, no, I do not consider myself an entrepreneur. Even more important word. This is what I'm playing with a lot. And I think it's important that every guy, that comes back. It's what you identify with. I do not identify with the word entrepreneur. I do not wake up, say, I'm an entrepreneur. And because of that, then I don't take the actions and the risks and run my life because of that identity. I identify as a coach. And really, I guess, if anybody's ever read The E-Myth, and I think it's a really important book, it should be a baseline book for all of your audience. It's a very famous book. And the E-Myth stands for, it's called the entrepreneurial myth, where everybody thinks they're an entrepreneur, but why businesses fail is because they're not entrepreneurs. And here's the thing, it's okay not to be an entrepreneur. That's the piece I wanted to get across. I think everybody says, I want to be an entrepreneur because now I'm like Elon Musk or I'm like Richard Branson. Now I'm, and it's like, no, it's okay. You got to decide who you are and what you want and then figure out how to do it. So I did those things, and somebody from the outside might say, wow, all these facilities, all these different business silos, you're an entrepreneur. But I would say, no, I'm a really great technician, but I identify as a coach, and I spend my time coaching people very tactically at what I do. And so I think that's a very important thing that no one is talking about. Well, but they are, because the book, The E-Myth, by Gerber, is legendary. But I guess maybe it's worth the discussion again. So this isn't a new idea of mine. That's a very old idea. And he actually wrote 4 books. And then there's E-Myth Mastery. It just keeps going. But ultimately, I think I want everybody listening to this that whether you say you got to give yourself permission or, hey, I'm giving you permission right now, it's okay not to call yourself an entrepreneur. You can still be a business owner.
So one key thing that you feel distinguishes an entrepreneur from a technician is entrepreneurs is very much in love with the money aspect of it. There's low-hanging fruit, there's opportunities. Maybe it's not exactly what they're passionate about, and that's maybe the difference, right? Like someone like you mentioned, Elon Musk or Richard Branson, or even Gary Vee, right? Gaming and all this other stuff. He's into all these things, and there's great opportunities. Some of them they might be passionate about, some of them...
But to even take it a step, this will be interesting, because it's not to say they're not passionate. They're passionate about the rush. Yes. They're passionate about business, the game. See, that's a serial entrepreneur, that the guy that's, like a Gary Vee, what's he famous for? First, it was his family's wine business, which maybe people forget, but then it's like, and I'm the first guy to get money in Uber or Twitter or this or that or that. Like, that's the game. So they do have, that'd be a great way to look at it. The passion's at a different level. Their passion is business. Therefore, they look for opportunity, regardless of the opportunity they're in, because they're an entrepreneur. If that's not your passion, it's okay, and that is not mine.
But earlier you said it's not about the money for me. What is it then for you, and why does that make you more of a technician than an entrepreneur?
So, and hey, one thing that everybody has to listen to too, it's easy to say, hey, it's not about the money, but hey, I have 4 daughters, and so me personally, I wouldn't say, hey, I don't, you see it, like I'm not driving a nice car and I don't have, these are the clothes that I'm in all the time. But hey, to provide for your family, and I believe it's everybody's God-given right to make money, and they should make money. Sure. So don't go, that's another piece with the identity. I think a lot of people make mistakes, in particular in the fitness industry or coaching, and they'll say, well, I'm a coach, so I shouldn't make any money. I'm just there to help people, and I should just suffer. And if that's what you identify with, then that's what your life will become. So what I say is, it's not the money that drives me, but I do expect to make money because I'm great and passionate about what I do. So I want, hey, but these are big keys to unlock for everybody listening, so that they don't go down the wrong road. Look what we've already identified. Hey, don't call yourself something you're not. And then don't say you never need to make money because you're an ex-service guy, and ex-service guys don't make money. Like that, man, because if those are your 2 truths, it's gonna lead you down the wrong road, and you'll get exactly what you're thinking about. So that being said, what I would say though is, here's a better line, you ready? If you're doing what you're passionate about and the world recognizes that, and it's your authentic thing and it's what you're supposed to be doing, the money will come, right? And so when I get up, hey, when I went in that presentation that you saw, I got paid really good money, right? And, but that was because of the 2 decades of passion and the work that I've done that allowed me to give that speech that then gets me that money. And that's a big challenge for everybody, again, for anybody listening to this. So maybe instead of saying, I'm gonna be an entrepreneur, the first question has to be, what are you passionate about? What do you enjoy? Where would you spend your time even if you weren't getting paid money? And hopefully the answer is not video games or watching Netflix, because I will say this, I think everybody has a higher mission, and hey, who better to identify with the mission than ex-military servicemen, where all that training and everything that we always did, hey, you like as an aviator, all the training you did, it has no value if there's no mission. But the minute there's a mission, you become incredibly valuable because you have skills that no one else has. It's the same thing in the real world. So you got to develop skills in the thing that you're good at, and then, man, when there's a mission and somebody needs it, you become valuable. And that would be the challenge for everybody listening, is what's that thing? Because it could be anything, but don't just jump to, I need to be a business owner and I need to call myself an entrepreneur and I need to now try to raise capital and all these things, and then end up 2 years later you realize, wow, this was never what I wanted. And it's because I never asked the big question.
I completely agree. And one of my friends who has a podcast, as a side hustle, so to speak, he posted on LinkedIn, I got let go today, they closed my position. And he's like, but I'm a former Marine, I am going to have to shift my mindset. I'm going to look at this as an opportunity, et cetera, et cetera. Anyone else who's been in the same kind of boat, please let me know your thoughts. So he tagged me and I wrote, this is a golden opportunity. Here's what you can do. If you just lost a substantial amount of income, then obviously you need to downsize and minimize to just the bare necessities. And I understand you have a family, but just get to the minimum piece. And now you can explore your curiosities, and exactly what you said. And I think it's so cliche and it gets used a lot, but that advice is never going to change because it's freaking real.
And most people don't do it.
He has the opportunity right now to just be like, I'm going to taste this flavor of whatever, and be like, you know what? I don't like that. But I want to take it a step further. Maybe he finds something and realizes he doesn't need to be a business owner or an entrepreneur, but I could be a good number 2 or number 3 at this startup because I am an operations guy, or I'm in love with finance. So can you talk about the opportunity to inject yourself, maybe not as an entrepreneur, but to help a business owner who is an entrepreneur, and get in that space?
Well, and it's not, hey, not only can I talk about it, it's what I did. So in a number of levels. So when I was a physical therapist, I didn't get it. So here would be the difference. Yeah, I was a physical therapist and I was good at it. And man, I knew the science and I knew the concepts of rehab, and I could follow protocol. But here's the thing, I didn't own the businesses, but I came in and I was able to contribute to the business and do my job, what I did, and then I got to leave and not have to have the hassles of what came along with that business. And then when we built the Parisi Speed School, hey, and I'll always say this, Bill Parisi, he was the entrepreneur. I was the technician, but us in combination is what made us great. You see what I mean? So So if you are a great technician, there is this serial entrepreneur that needs you.
Yes.
And you know what? And you're going to become incredibly valuable. And as you show off more skills, they'll know it and you move. So hey, another example would be Steve Jobs and Elon Musk, if we say, and Bill Gates. When we talk about all these guys, they're unicorns, man. So true entrepreneurs, that's why we write about them so much. They're unicorns. But the thing is, every one of those entrepreneurs, the Apple never happens without a ton of great people that were doing what they were passionate about. And you know what? And they made tons of money.
Yeah.
Like, though Microsoft and Apple, and probably now Google and these other things have made more, millionaires and probably billionaires than any other companies, but most of them weren't entrepreneurs. And so, hey, we're having a breakthrough here. We're uncovering something here and that's okay, but you got to figure out what you're great at and what you want to be great at and go do it. So to be honest, it took 20 years until I moved out and now I was the guy at the top creating jobs for everybody else. Yeah. And I had to learn all those lessons along the way to do it. And sometimes, I'll be honest, sometimes I say, man, I wish I was just the guy that could go home afterwards too. So again, we're giving everybody permission that it's go be great and the world will find you, but it should be at something you're passionate about and you love. So that would have been the best advice again to your friend. And here's one that I say a lot too, and this will help maybe everybody is, what's the worst thing that can happen if you go and explore? What's the worst thing that can happen if you find out the thing that you really went for, it doesn't work out? Yes. You know what the worst thing that happens? You go back doing the thing you didn't like, Yeah. But the really true worst thing that can happen is you never even take a shot. So one big piece of advice that I give in many of my seminars that it wasn't that day, I don't think, but watch this one, and this will be powerful for everybody coming back. Ready? Don't go get good at something you hate.
Oh yeah.
Don't go get good at something you don't love. You're right. Don't go get good. That was what I had essentially done. So as a physical therapist, I liked it, and I liked the people I worked with, and that was cool. But I didn't love it, man. I wasn't watching videos every day on how to get better. I wasn't going to ceaseless courses on how to do it. You know where I was going? I was going to speed courses and courses on sports, and the signs were all there that my side hustle has so here would be a great one. Whatever your side hustle is, that's probably the thing you really love doing. And yet we spend so little time on it. We're so afraid that it can't be something that then it never really goes. And people spend 30, 40 years doing something they didn't like.
I agree. And getting good at something you don't like is a visceral experience when you come to the realization, like, what the hell have I been doing?
Yeah, that's the Monday blues. That's when you wake up with a knot in your
sad
gut. You don't want to go to work.
Says.
Yeah.
So let's wrap up this topic with something we also talked about, which was, in my opinion, can be a kind of trap for servicemen and women, which is, I was a Marine for X amount of years. I was in the Army for X amount of years. Like, I have discipline, I have character, I have standards, I have ethics, I have this amazing package. And leadership, of course. Oh, we got to say leadership. Yeah. So here I am, and I see, a t-shirt business, and I can definitely do that as an entrepreneur because I can will myself to understand everything because I don't effing fail, and I am, I've done it. I can power through anything. True or false?
Here's what I would say. It's a double-ended answer, right? Like, so true, you can power through stuff for a while. Mm-hmm. And this word that I see a lot that I think will eventually, it started off as like this hardcore word that was so cool that's gone away, was grind, right? Like, rise and grind, gotta wake up and grind. I'm grinding, baby. I'm grinding harder than anybody. And what I say is, if you're grinding, that means you do something you hate, which is creating a lot of friction, which will eventually wear you down, right? But so could you try something like that you're not passionate about? And like you said, will yourself and suffer, and by the way, probably burn all your capital and then go out of business? Yeah. But that isn't a smart thing to do. And in particular, if you definitely don't love it, as we've already identified, then if you're not passionate about it, like, hey, if you're the most passionate person about t-shirts on the planet, like my cousin has a guy that started off with, he made the flags for flag football. And then he made t-shirts, and they made something else and something else and something else. And he eventually had the biggest collegiate brand. So you go to any college store, all of his stuff is in there. And then he eventually sold, and he's mega, like he's a mega guy now. But here's the thing, entrepreneur and super passionate about that. And so he never grinded ever and became one of the most successful guys there is. So if you've bought a shirt at a college store, the odds are you bought his brands, which is crazy, right? Yeah. But the lesson in there again was the guy was an entrepreneur and he was passionate about what he did. So what I would say is now.
Share the analogy, by the way, the one you mentioned about the person.
Yeah, here would be the example. No, yeah. So going back to the other piece though, like what you said before is, hey, I'm a Marine. Well, hey, that makes you a great Marine, right? And but I'm hardcore. Yeah, hey, I meet a lot of business people. They'll outwork you. Like, doesn't mean that you're a Marine. Like there's killers everywhere, man. Like that can work hard. Like I'll say this: I'm not a Marine. I can't identify with that or call myself that. But I will say that I've been, I lived at the Olympic Training Center. I've been a black belt, and am a black belt. And hey, I have disciplined and crushed myself physically, and disciplined myself. I would hope to believe very hard too, right? So this is also people we're competing against, and the skills that you developed, that you learned, again, it makes you a Marine, not a business owner, or not a leader of people that aren't Marines, or every bit of that tactical skill that you develop there, you have to understand you'll have to learn the same thing in whatever business it is. So hey, am I discounting it? Never. Yeah. But like we talked about, if you don't know how to swim and I throw you in the middle of the ocean, because you're hardcore and because you're tough and hey, hoorah, like you will not survive. And so the thing is, you got to make sure you're swimming where you're supposed to be swimming, if that makes sense. So, and again, that's not to, hey, I never want it to be negative or whatever else, but it's calling it so. And why I'm saying these things is because the worst thing that could happen is a guy says, I'm going for this and I can do these things. Because I've met a bunch of my ex-military friends that they've lost it all, man. Yeah. So I say that hard stuff right now because I'm coaching people up, because they lost it all. They opened a business that they shouldn't have opened, and they grind for a few years, and then they lose you ready? They lose all their money. Mm-hmm. They lost their family, because that destroys that there too. So, and I know there's people listening, they know what I'm talking about. So I didn't say that to say, like I don't respect Marines or they're not hardcore. What I'm saying is that doesn't mean that you've been given the skills to now go either run a business and in particular in an industry you don't know anything about. So is ethic and discipline important? Absolutely. But here's what I would call it, and maybe this will help explain it too. That's compulsory, baby. Mm-hmm. Like, here's the thing. For me to run my business, I got to have ethic. I got to have discipline. I got to have core values and morals and stand for a bigger mission. Right. So that's like everybody has to have that. So that's not a separate playing field now. Mm-hmm. Now what it is, well, what's your passion and what are the skills that you've so developed that make you more valuable than anybody else to use it? Yeah. And again, it's sharing that, because again, the worst thing that could happen is guys come back and then they try to be something they're not, and they lose it all. And not only that, because then that's not a good story. And that story probably happens more often than not. That's why we're doing this in the first place. Why we're doing this. Yeah. So
we'll transition now to, and we talked about, some of the servicemen and women who could be good coaches. But and I want to get into that, but coaches, how do coaches get guided by other coaches? Like, you decided, you know what, I've been doing this for however long, I have all this experience, I go and I talk about it, I've lived it, I'm a practitioner, I need to do something else. And that led you to be like, I'm putting pen to paper, and you've written before, but this is a little bit different. Talk to me about the book and why it even exists.
Well, as we mentioned in my story already, I'm always searching for the bigger mission. And I think for anybody listening to this too, that is the purpose, right? Like if you can serve more people, because hey, everybody, maybe one of the most valuable things for our military coming out is they understand the concept of service, yes. Right? And so here's a different concept, and it's not a different concept, but maybe a different way to look at it. You're not, say, just serving the military, but when you were serving in the military, you were actually serving our 400 million Americans, right? Well, here's the thing. The more people you can serve with your passion and the job that you do, the more valuable you become, and ultimately, the more impact you make, and then there's a legacy at the end. So where I'm at now, at almost 49, is not where I'm at when I was 29. When I was 29, it was a whole lot more about me. And now at 49, it's a whole lot more about we, meaning, well, what am I doing, or how's this world going to be a little bit better of a place than it was before I got here? And even more importantly, what I think at the end of the day when I teach in my courses, I'll ask people, I'll say, what do you want to be remembered for? And wow, that's when it hits people, because ultimately I think people realize that is the end of the game. Like, the end of this whole game is you better have done something to have been remembered for. That's why we want to wear medals on our chest, and we want to do acts of valor when it comes time in the military. But hey, what are those medals and acts of valor when you get out? And that is really this new book, and it was the genesis of it, where I started to identify, well, there was a lot of people in fitness and there were a lot of people in sport, and I've done a lot of cool things. I've worked in the NFL, I've trained UFC champs, but you know what? I wasn't impacting that many people.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, these were really successful people already that felt good about themselves, and many of them had a lot of money. So my impact, when you get hundreds of guys drafted to the NFL, in the giant scheme of things, I don't know, it wasn't that big. And then after having done that for a decade and a half, you start saying two words that are really important, which every service member, another one we're going to hit. Here's the two biggest words. You know what the two biggest words are? What's next? Right? Like, think about it. Like, deep down, that's what it is. Like, hey, I'm transitioning out of the military. What's next? And this is what we're talking about today, that we're trying to, you used a great word, potholes, or hey, landmines, right? Hey guys, I'm bringing up a lot of landmines here that I want to make sure I'm giving you the map to avoid them. And that's why I'm doing it. And one of those is going to be, a giant landmine is to spend your whole life and you didn't do anything, and at the end of it, nothing great happened, So I realized everybody is a coach. Like, everyone is a coach to someone else. Now, having 4 children, I'm their coach. Hey, my wife, she's my coach. My friends, we coach each other. When I worked within companies, we were all coaches up and down every direction. And hey, everybody that's in the military, they get it. Like, you have coached up your friends. You've been coached too. You've coached up, down, usually probably a little less up than down. That's how the military works. But in the real world, hey, you coach in every direction. And that's when I really identified, number one, that word identity that we talked about. Just like I don't wake up and identify with the concept of entrepreneur, then I'm not an entrepreneur. Well, I think everybody understands the concept, because you nodded your heads. I said everybody's a coach. Yeah. Everybody goes like this. But I say, but do you identify with that? Do you call yourself a coach? And most people don't. They say they're a mom, or they say they're a business owner, or they say they're a teacher, or they say, the only people that say I'm a coach is maybe you're on the sports field saying you're a coach. Right. And I have this bigger mission that if I could get everybody to identify that they understood they were a coach, then I believe the whole world is going to change, because I believe the world needs better coaches. Every time there's another dilemma, disaster, hey, I will say this, and I say it with pride. Guys, I'm a patriot. And why have I even become more of a patriot? It's because I spend a lot of time outside of the United States. Yes. I've done 35 countries in the last 5 years alone. And you know what I'm getting tired of? I'm getting tired of having to defend our nation in conversation about, more people got shot, or more this happened here, or this thing happened that, or this happened that. And what I will say is, a lot of the stuff that people bring up in our country all go away if we all had better coaches. You know what I mean? And it's true. If we all identified that we were coaches being hell-bent to help somebody else get somewhere, we would be better off. And so it is my mission to not only get everybody to identify with that concept, but then show them how to do it. And this book is the Trojan horse for that. It's a parable, like you said, a departure. It's a story. When you read it, you won't be the same after you've read it, but you're going to understand, holy cow, I'm a coach. This is my job. Here's ways to do the job. And man, I see now I haven't been doing the job. And I haven't been doing the job in my own home. I haven't been doing the job in my business. I haven't been doing the job in my community. And man, if you became that great coach, your life is going to change, and you're going to make a bigger impact on somebody else.
Can you give me an example of a non-fitness industry coach? So whether it's on the family side or whether it's on the business ownership side, tell me ways that I could identify, or the audience can identify, like, you are actually coaching on a daily basis and you're just not thinking about it the right way. And if you help them ingrain some of the maybe standards that you're looking at, or some of the concepts, then maybe it could be a little bit more overt, the effort.
Well, here'd be a simple one to use the coaching analogy for business and what I've seen, because I consult for a lot of businesses. And if you thought of your business and that you were a head coach and your team is your team, I guarantee the whole world would run their businesses differently. Let me give an example, because it's the Super Bowl. So regardless of when people are listening to this, the Super Bowl is in a few days. And I've had a lot of experience in the NFL. So here's what I would say. So is the NFL coach going to put the worst guys on the field? No way. Like, he cannot allow that. He's got to put the best team on the field at all times. Okay, and now say, hey, because you're on that team, so the guys that are on the team this year, are they guaranteed a spot next year? How about the year after that? No. 10 years from now, because they played on that Super Bowl team. No way. But in business, we put a lot of the wrong people on the field all the time, and we know it. We never consistently draft and bring in new people and let them know that they got to earn their spot every day. It's like the word tenure, it's like, well, they've been here a long time, we're going to do it. Yeah. And then watch this. The 49ers and the Chiefs, did they just play games? What do they have to do more than anything else? Win. No, practice.
Yeah.
They got to practice.
Yep.
They got to practice. They got to scrimmage. And you know what? Most businesses don't do either of those. There's no training, there's no teaching, and no one's any better the next day or the next day or the next day. But in sport, you demand it. You see what I mean? Like, you see, you having that breakthrough there? Like, in sport, you demanded it. It would be like, man, dude, you do all your drills right now. You got to run like Jerry Rice, using as an example from the 49ers. The guy ran routes nonstop more than anybody else. That's why he became the best. And the thing is, in business, nobody's running the routes every day. Nobody's practicing to get better. And the head coach doesn't demand it. And then they wonder why we got apathetic people on our team and our business isn't doing well and everybody's not that skilled. And you know what? And we're used to it, because you can go to any business in the world and it's usually mediocre service and people don't do things well. But the ones that do it well and really train and really rock and roll, those businesses rage. So you wanted an example, there would be a, that's what's good. And the analogy could just go on forever. But the whole thing is, hey, that's in your business, or that could be with your team, right? And hey, thinking of that too. Now say you're not the head coach, but you're on a team. You should be coaching up your buddies and your other players and high-fiving them and doing some stuff. No one does it. People in business don't do that either. So, and then you take it into the house, right? And this one maybe will hit home the most, because I will say one of the tragedies that I have often seen with just about every one of my buddies that is either in the military or has been in the military is their personal relationships fail. Sure. And here's what I would say, because they don't identify with being a coach and coach each other up. And instead, they again create that distance long enough. And here's an interesting thing. See, the coach's job is to communicate all the time. The coach's job is to be, not only to see where everything is at, but to communicate in order to give skills or help or to get the result they want. Like, you think Bill Belichick just hides and there's no communication? Like, no, he's on it. And when there's something that isn't going right, you have to address it immediately. And here's the thing, in our relationships, and I know this because, hey, I've always been culprit of it too. When you lack communication, dissent, anger, negativity, they fill that void, right? And if you let that go long enough and hard enough, like, the team fails. And so ultimately, I'm trying to give an example. It's on every level, and the coolest part is the book is about all of that. So the book is this young coach, and man, it's not going right in his family life. It's not going right with his kids. It's not going right with the people he's coaching. It's not going right up the chain with the people that are supposed to be coaching him. And it's either going to all fall apart or something has to happen. And like this hero's journey, this magical old man shows up out of nowhere. Whether you want to call him Mr. Miyagi or Obi-Wan Kenobi, if it, like whatever anybody's going to get, this dude shows up and hey, tough love slaps him around and shows the guy what it means to be a coach. And gives him actionable things that he has to start doing in each one of those areas. And then it's this journey of how he learns to identify with what it really means. And it's really, and here's the coolest part. As I was writing it, each day I didn't know where it was going. Like, I would go to bed at night and I would say, I can't wait to see where this is gonna go next. Like, what's gonna happen tomorrow? And man, it just flowed out. And like we were talking about it, I sent it to the biggest publishing house, no agent, no nothing, and boom. they went for it immediately, and now it's fast tracked.
You manifested
Yeah.
the turnaround, which ended up into a fast tracking. And when I say manifested, for people listening or watching some of these clips, you wrote the book and you sent it. And what do you mean by manifesting?
So
you didn't put $100 bill in there.
Here's what I love about that word or whatever. So you see, like, you see that Rooney's Rules book right there? Grab one of those and give it to me. And this is really powerful. I'm going to give a little personal philosophy stuff here. So this is a book called Rooney's Rules, where the genesis of this happened. And this was this is 3.5 years, holding in my hand, but 10 years before that of the content. And I used to always say certain things to my athletes, like there'd be just lines, you know what I mean? Like, hey, we're gonna push the fences back here, like a baseball analogy, because you know what? No matter how far they push the fences back, people figure out how to hit home runs. Right. So what am I talking about there is I'm gonna set the expectations so high because we're gonna keep stretching where we go here. And I would say these things, and sometimes they would write them down, and then they started to write them down until we had a compilation, and then they made this compilation of them. And I didn't think it held enough power just to be the words. So what I did was I made it into actual imagery, you know? But here's the thing. So when I talk about manifest, which I love, and this is this idea I have that people can't understand, is see, when I look at this, it'll never cease to amaze me that this was an idea in the ether. And every idea in it was an idea in the ether that became an image or a thing. And those ideas then eventually became a real, tangible thing that I can put my hands on, you know, so that is to manifest. So it's like, you know, and think about it, we've done it with anything. Like, think about it, you flew helicopters, like, that was an idea, like, you know, meaning Da Vinci had the idea, I think they say, but the whole thing is somebody had to make that thing and be in that thing. And the chair you sit in, or we're videoing on these cameras. Can you believe that we are somehow taping this conversation that, like, thousands of people will see? Like, these were all ideas from someone else. And what I want everybody to understand is, so your ideas are your most powerful thing, and your ideas are what make you unique, right? So if I asked you for your ideas on stuff and my ideas on stuff, we'd have different ideas. That makes us unique. But in order to make the idea real, you got to manifest it. You have to push forward in whatever way it is, to then that thing is a real thing that you can give as a gift. So I can't wait, because when I have the book Coach to Coach in my hands in only a couple of weeks, where I'm going to get my first copies, that's the magic nobody will see. But here's I guess what I'm trying to say with manifest. I had to see it exactly what it was before it ever could become real. So I had to see the cover. I had to see how it fit in my hands. I had to see people reading it. I had to imagine the experience. I had to see that editor. What did he need to see that he would love it and he would pay me for it? So I completely manifested the idea, and then the idea became real. But anybody can do that, and it's free. But I think a lot of people, they hold themselves back, or they don't think that that's possible. So now I see, as we talked about, like, my ideas are my most valuable commodity. and so you've got to constantly be creating them and exploring them. But at the same time, those ideas create something real. So if your idea is you're an entrepreneur and you really aren't, you don't identify with it, you see how you're not going to manifest maybe the right thing. If your idea is you never identified with a coach, then, and you never run your business like that, or your relationships with that, at least some of that concept there, maybe those won't manifest correctly either. So ultimately, yeah, like, if that explains it, the manifest idea is it's from idea to actually real. And that's the thing that excites me the most now. So again, like, you see these logos of Training for Warriors and this other stuff, that it's all ideas that now, like, it's almost crazy. Like, look at this thing. Like, this thing was given to me in Finland. This thing is, I forget what kind of either stone or how they made this thing. This logo and this concept and what I wanted to do was an idea. Now it's this giant real stone that somebody gave me in Finland, you know? So, like, manifest, you know? And so it's just neat where now I want to see what more I can continue to create and manifest all the time.
I mean, I know I could speak for myself and a lot of us who've seen you talk that Coach to Coach is probably going to be a huge, huge breakthrough for many of us. I hope it crushes, and I'm sure you could manifest it to crush as well. And all that being said, I want to make sure people can find you online. You are everywhere, by the way, but where can people find more about Training for Warriors? Maybe people want to learn how to become a coach, especially this audience. It's like, I've never truly considered it, but that could be my chance to impact. Where can people find you, and we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, so hey, trainingforwarriors.com, you can find out more about that mission that we're on. Coachinggreatness.com, you can find out if people are interested in being a coach. Hey, if you ever wanted to be a presenter or learn how to present yourself better, I've got presentinggreatness.com too. So that's kind of the ecosystem. But I am on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, yeah, all over. So if you Google me, you'll find some stuff. But ultimately, the best way that everybody can thank me for what they've probably heard today is by actually taking action on it. So it's just, I think, unfortunately, a lot of people just take the idea, but they don't do anything with it. So the homework for everybody listening to this would be, sit down, maybe journal a little bit. Are you an entrepreneur or not? And hey, what do you really want to do? Hey, what are some holes either in your business or your relationships right now that you could coach yourself up or coach others up to improve and be where you want to be? Because as I'm getting older, I'm realizing time is my most important commodity. And to waste any of it is, and then to waste years and years of it chasing something you don't want to chase would be the biggest tragedy, when somebody still has something great inside. And the last piece is, if they are intrigued, hey, that Coach to Coach book, you can get that anywhere. Amazon, if this is being watched after March 10, it'll be in bookstores. But I'm just hoping people help create this movement, because that's the mission I'm on, to make a world of better coaches.
Absolutely. I have to close with one thing. So this is way longer than I usually go, but I cannot not mention this. And that is, when you were talking about coaching and how we fail, how people are doing mediocre in the business, you gave me a huge breakthrough. And it took Eliza and I, who's here with us, a little while to kind of figure this out. But when you're not coaching, and that kind of, dissent is kind of mounting within, and I asked you about this, I'm like, you're like, look at your people, and Craig says it as well, like, would you enthusiastically rehire these people? That is like dead giveaway. Like, if you are not looking at your business like that, and this is my message to veteran entrepreneurs or business owners, every 90 days, would you rehire enthusiastically everyone with you? And if not, or maybe you said this one, would you take 10 of them? Yeah. Would you take 10 more of X person? Holy crap. Yeah. And that was a revelation.
Maybe it's the sports analogy too. If you're running it like you're a professional sports team, are you going to put the worst players on the field? Mm-hmm. Or the question could be, do you have the best players on the field right now? Right. But never forget too, it can go deeper where you got to say whose fault that is though. Like, have you given that player the tools? Have you given that player the training? Now, if you can say yes to that emphatically, because remember, a coach doesn't leave everybody alone. Yes. Like, that's, I think, the mistake we make too is, hey, this is my business, you're really good, so you should just be running. I shouldn't have to work with you. No, that's not how it works. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of people get taught that in businesses. Like, you're trying to own a business so you never have to be at your business. That'd be like Bill Belichick saying, I'm the coach, so I shouldn't be around. They should do their thing, which is ludicrous. So again, it's just that mindset. But I agree 100%. I think one of the biggest challenges is we're afraid of that communication, and we haven't set the tone for everybody to understand if they don't get their job done, then their job is expendable. And I think people are afraid too that, well, if I get rid of this person, now I don't have anybody and I can't do anything. And again, it goes back to the sports team. There'll be somebody else, and then you got to train them right and do it right.
You're right. I used to think any help was better than no help, and that's actually not true.
That could destroy your business.
It could. So
that'd be like, hey, they're gonna throw me and you at the cornerback spot for the Super Bowl. Like, that would be a really bad decision, right? Even though we're there. So, but hey, and it's not to say that it's easy. They're easy said, cut and dry ideas. But hey, it takes work, and that means you've got to set the whole infrastructure where everybody understands how it works, and the culture that's where the culture comes in of your business. They have to understand how it's being run. They have to understand that there's going to be regular communication. They have to understand that they got to step up or they step out. And if none of that has been set, then it is hard. Remember, it's still, you got to point back at yourself and say, what have I not done that maybe is leading to this too?
100%. I think that was one of the biggest lessons. So Martin, thank you so much for everything.
My pleasure.
I'll let you know when this goes, and good luck with Coach to Coach.